Good morning. I'm Ryan Leopard, and this is Fort Wayne Up Close. Fort Wayne Up Close give us an opportunity to use and shine the light on local leaders in our community. And today I have the privilege of talking with someone that I have known personally for many years now and admired not only for his growth as a businessman, entrepreneur, but also as a fellow sports enthusiast and philanthropist as well. I've had the pleasure to work with this man professionally, share the jiu-jitsu mats with him, even catching a few stray knees and elbows along the way. Yeah, and even played competitive wiffle ball together. When he's not traveling the world, sitting courtside at NBA games, talking to Tim Tebow or Jalen Rose, you can also find him at national CrossFit competitions or on the basketball court trying to make his collegiate comeback. Yet somehow through it all, he finds time to actively be involved in his kids' sporting lives and even finds time to play superheroes with his friends at local hospitals for good causes. I want to welcome the most interesting man in Fort Wayne, Bobby Petras. Bobby, welcome to Our Neutral Voices.
Thanks for having me. And that intro was next level. I might have to steal it because maybe my kids will think I'm cool.
Thank you. So like any good superhero, I want to bring you on the show today and kind of learn the origins of Robert Petras Jr. Because you're not originally from Fort Wayne. So tell us where you're from and how you ended up in the fort.
Yeah, so I'm from this little town in Ohio called Toronto, Ohio. It's a town of about 6,000 people.
How far is that from here?
It's like 5 hours, like full 5 hours. So we grew up low end and middle class. My parents are still very involved in my life. My father played football at the University of Marshall the year after the plane crash. So he was on the movie that's about his team. Mm-hmm. My mother was a high school mother. Okay, so she got pregnant at 16 to my sister, who's my only sister. She's 5 years older than me. Had my sister at 17 and then graduated high school early. Like back then, they basically were like, "Yeah, you're a mom. Like, let's get you out of here." So my parents really struggled just because my mother and father are both really young. And so our upbringing was great. Like we didn't go without anything, but I learned the definition of dirt poor because we had a house that had a dirt basement in it. And
so literally
dirt. And so my bedroom was like a hallway. And this one night, I swear I saw like a mouse or a rat or something on the floor. So I knock on my sister's door and I'm like, "Sevi, can I sleep in bed with you?" And I was like maybe 5, so she's 10. She's like, "No." She's like, "Take the cat." All right. So I took the cat. We had this cat named Pepper. And I wake up the next morning to my sister screaming. And I look down and there's a rat with his like throat ripped out. The cat had killed it. So because when you have a dirt basement, rats will bore through the dirt and come in the house. So definition of dirt poor. But I mean, I had a great, like the town is great. Like it's 3.5 miles long, 2 miles wide, and you can ride your bike everywhere. Like everybody still knows your name. I just was back there a few weeks ago. Everybody literally still knows your name.
So you still have ties to that?
100%. My parents still live there. My wife is from Steubenville, Ohio, which is the next town over. It would be like saying like you're from Fort Wayne and I'm from Auburn, kind of like that far distance. But like we go back. I saw super duper fond memories, and I had grown up there. Went to 2 different colleges. I went to the University of Findlay my freshman year. Then I transferred to Tiffin, which I'm so actively involved in Tiffin. And then when I was at Tiffin, I played football and ran track. And after my senior season, I had gotten some interest from some professional teams. And I had the Detroit Lions and the Browns had come to campus for like my pro day. And I really,
at Tiffin?
At Tiffin. Mm-hmm. I had a really good pro day. And the Lions scout introduced me to an agent that was out of Detroit. He's like, "Hey, this guy has a lot of our players. Like, you should kind of get hooked up with him and kind of like, hey, like sit and wait. We may invite you to camp." Mm-hmm. And so this agent got me this tryout with this team in Cincinnati called the Cincinnati Swarm. I went down there, tried out.
Made an arena team?
Yep, arena team. Made the team. But then like the schedule was going to start while I was still in school, and they're like, you got to drop out of school. And I'm like, "I don't want to drop out of school. I need to finish." Like I was almost done. So I left the team. I went back to school, and the agent called me and said, "Hey, there's this new team called the Fort Wayne Freedom, and they're having tryouts." So I had a tryout at the Plex North, good tryout, but like no one really talked to me after. So I just went back to college. Was talking to several CFL teams, and then the Lions called and said, "Hey, we're going to have you back up for like another individual workout, but this time in Detroit. Have you gotten on anywhere yet?" And I was like, "Not really, a couple teams." And so my agent called the Fort Wayne team and said, "Hey, the Lions are going to bring him into camp. Do you want this guy or not?" And they were like, "Yeah." So I came back to Fort Wayne. They cut the starting safety like at practice in front of me. Had to be like removed by the police.
Awkward.
Yeah. And like literally like gave me his like shoulder pads, and I played in the game, had a really good game. And then towards the end of the year, I go up to Detroit, have a really good workout. Robert Herman Moore was a guy that like took me around, and I just like really good workout, tested really well. And then they're like kind of same thing, like we're gonna have this, we're gonna send out invites to undrafted like rookie camp, or we'll bring you back up for another workout. I'm like, okay, so I go finish out the season. We've got one game left in the season, and I decided I wasn't gonna play because Detroit had called and said, "Hey, we're bringing you back up." All right, great. So my dad comes, like, help me move, like, all my stuff. Phone rings, coach calls and says, "Hey, a couple guys got hurt. Is there any way you can play?" And I was like, "I really don't play." So they offered to pay me more. I'm like, whatever, I'll play. I have, like, the game of my life. Start on offense, catch 3 or 4 passes, a touchdown. Defense, I have, like, 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery. I get taken out because we're winning the game by a lot. Guy that goes in for me, very first play, gets hurt. Go back in, and we're just running the ball. Quarterback runs a draw, runs off, like cutting off my block. Guy trying to tackle the quarterback, fell off him, rolls into me, breaks my leg. Wow. And it was like one of those things where it was like hypertrophic, my bone didn't fuse, and so it just it derailed my professional football career because the Lions now was out, and I ended up playing like 2 more years after, but I was just really never the same player.
Yeah. What'd your agent say to you?
We're still good friends, actually. His son plays at Notre Dame. I'm a Notre Dame season ticket holder, so I get to see Tom still quite a bit. It was tough because he had a bunch of really high-end free agents that year and had me worked into each of the deal. And he's like, "Are you healthy yet? Are you healthy yet?" I'm like, so that's how in hindsight, it really worked out because that's how I ended up coming back to Fort Wayne, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love it.
Yeah, well, maybe it all worked out for a reason because you'd been miserable up there in Detroit. Instead, you actually were probably winning here with the Freedom. Freedom had a pretty good team then,
that
right?
year that, like, I would have, if I got invited to camp, that was the year they didn't win a game. So,
Very good. Yeah. So, obviously, that's how you got to Fort Wayne. But as you mentioned, you're not from here. So, what made you stay in Fort Wayne?
It's a good question. I got
at one point in time, I think you were thinking about leaving, right?
Go back my home? Wife and I, Brandy, like, we'd kind of always envisioned ourselves moving back to Ohio, like Columbus, Ohio. That's where a lot of our friends, probably like here, a lot of people moved to like Indianapolis or something. And we looked, I applied for a bunch of jobs and stuff, and I had taken a job with Centennial Wireless here in town. They were a sponsor of the Freedom, and I honestly didn't really plan to do anything with that. But I fell in love with sales, and they had like a great training and all this stuff. And so my wife, who wasn't even my fiance at the time, I was trying to get her to move up here, and she's like, "Well, I'm not going to move up there."
So she wasn't here with you during.
No, she was living in Steubenville. She had just graduated college, like had her first job. She was a social worker, and she's like, "I'm not moving up here until I have a job." So I found her a job, and then she's like, "Well, I'm not moving up here till we're engaged," and so I proposed to her. So I really drug her up here, and she really was homesick. She wanted to move back, and I was ready to, and then we just kind of fell in love with the town. It's not, Fort Wayne it's a big city to me, but it's small, right? It's like very compartmentalized. And so like it just felt like home. So I never left.
Yeah. Even as we are obviously actively growing here, it's still the same type of community. Like everybody kind of knows each other from one person to another. Like, oh, where'd you go to high school? So-and-so, still that kind of small community there. So, all right. So you transitioned, you stayed here, Centennial Wireless, right? Yep. How did you go from obviously sales, retail store manager there? I believe I met you beforehand through some mutual friends at Centennial Wireless, but we worked together there at the same time. How did you transition from retail store manager of Centennial Wireless to CEO of Priority Life Care?
Yeah. Oh, my sister's the CEO. I'm the president. I don't want to take her thunder. So So I was a successful sales rep at Centennial, and I really bought into the training, became a manager. And, as you and I were talking, I was fired. Right. And so I went home for Thanksgiving. My sister was a banker. She was an investment banker. And this is like right after the 2008 banking crisis had hit. And so we're home for Thanksgiving, and my sister brought a case of wine and an easel with a business plan on it. And was like, we're all going to quit our jobs and start this assisted living management company. And as I mentioned, I got fired. Everyone either quit their jobs or got fired. Like I got fired. My mom got fired. I think my wife was the only one that didn't get fired. So that's Thanksgiving. Like we're cheersing, like this is a great idea. My wife and I are driving back, and she's like, "You're not going to quit your job, are you?" And I said, "No, but my sister's probably onto something." And so what my sister had done is she had lent in this space, mostly in skilled nursing, which is a higher acuity. When you hear of skilled nursing, like that's where people that either like fell and broke their hip go for rehab, or they're really sick, more end of life care. And assisted living is you need help with things, but you're still fairly independent. Okay. And my sister saw this gap between this high end assisted living and skilled nursing, which is skilled nursing is paid for almost entirely by Medicare, which is a federally funded thing, or Medicaid, which is state funded. And then assisted living traditionally is all private pay. But my sister had looked and seen there's a few states at the time that were using Medicaid for payment. And so she's like, I think we could, create this company. So we went to a guy that she had lent money to in the past, and kind of as a free consultant. And he liked our idea so much that he said, I'll tell you what, if you're willing to do all the operations, I have a back office and I'll kind of help us get financing. So we did that with him. We bought our first property. In the meantime, my wife got pregnant with our first kid when I have no job. And as I mentioned, the market's really bad. So we tried to sell our house, but we couldn't. And so we sold all the furniture. I cashed it in my 401k because we needed money to get started. We moved back in with my in-laws in Ohio, and which is not ideal because they
living with my
in-laws and a newborn baby trying to start a business. Not ideal, but I'm super grateful for them because they paid for everything. 'Cause I had zero money. And, so we started this company. We opened our first building January 1st, 2010. My daughter wasn't even a month old. And I was driving back and forth to Cleveland because that's where our first building was. And we were just all hands on deck trying to figure this out. And we then we grew that portfolio or partnership to probably 7 communities. So that was 2010. In 2015, he comes to my sister, and they were really those two were partners. I wasn't involved in the partnership, and said, "Hey, I'm getting out of the business." He had got involved in the drug and alcohol rehab space and was making a bunch of money. And he kind of was like, "I really don't care what you guys do, but I'm selling all this stuff." And the way our partnership had worked, because he was a majority owner, he controlled all of the cash events. So if, I think we had a bunch of times where we bought the building cheap, refinanced it, and then sold it for a lot more. But our money kind of always got rolled into the next deal. And we knew that if we sold these buildings, we weren't really going to get anything. So here we are again. We had done well, but really had not accumulated wealth. Okay. And so we didn't have the money to buy any of the buildings. And so my sister and I were just going to take jobs. I was applying for sales jobs. She was going to go back into investment banking. And we were just kind of defeated.
At that time, was you thinking about giving up on?
Yeah.
Strategy?
Yeah. We were done. I mean, because we didn't have enough money to buy him out, and we were defeated, honestly. And then I remember my sister was like, "Look, our one last chance is we can go to this conference. We call it the NIC. It's the National Investor Conference. It's where all the operators in our space and all the banks meet twice a year, and it's real expensive to go." And she's like, "We can only afford to buy one ticket, and you can't get into the meetings without a ticket." So she's like, "I'll buy a ticket, and then I'll set meetings up offsite, and we're just going to beg banks for money." So we did. I think we had 10 meetings, and they're all like, "Yeah, I just don't think it's going to work," kind of thing. And so I'm back in Fort Wayne, and we're just like, "Shoot, what are we going to do?" And this one group that couldn't meet with us set a call up with us, and they're a REIT, and they're like, "We can buy them and lease them back to you." And we're like, "Great, let's do it." And so we bought the Fort Wayne building, a building in West Allis, Wisconsin, and a building in Baltimore, Maryland. We bought 3 buildings, and we just planned to be small mom and pop. Like it was like I'm running the Fort Wayne building with my wife.
That was at the whole Holiday Inn.
Yep, the one downtown.
Okay.
Yep. My mom was going to focus on the Maryland or the Wisconsin one, and my sister was going to focus on Maryland. But what we didn't have was a back office because our former partner had that. And so we took on what we call like third-party management contracts to get enough money to basically hire an accountant and a couple other people. And so what happened is our third-party contracts got bigger than the ones we owned, or they were about the same. And so that was March 1st, 2016, we signed the leases on those. Okay. Then we took on 4 more leases with the same company. And at that point, we probably had, 20 buildings. Mm-hmm. Okay. We started making more money on the third party stuff. And so I go to my sister. I'm like, I think we should just focus on the third party stuff. And she was kind of like, well, no one really does that. And I showed her the margins we were making on third party versus the stuff that we owned and leased. And I'm like, we got to get out of these leases. So we found someone to take over our leases on November 1st, 2019. And the only reason I'd say that is because 5 months later, COVID happens, right? 2020 hits. Our industry is decimated. If you had a lease property, you're screwed. And so I always say we basically had like a 4-leaf clover up our butts because we got out of those leases. And while all these companies kind of went backwards in 2020, we just went like we grew. We managed the properties really well. Our staff was incredible in 2020. And then because everybody kind of fumbled and faltered in 2020, 2021, all these companies started bringing us their stuff to fix. Because that's kind of what we've been known to do is take something that's bad and fix it.
Yeah. Just be the manager of the operations.
Yep.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously that's the priority life healthcare. CrossFit, that was a passion of yours, right? Mm-hmm. So 10 plus years, 15 plus years, how long have you been involved in the CrossFit
So community? I've been doing CrossFit for 13, I think, years. I think we've owned Matt Apple for 12. Look, I've always been an athlete. I mean, when I played football, and then you kind of mentioned did jujitsu. I did jujitsu and mixed martial arts at a high level. And then when Brandy had our second daughter, Bianca, that's when we found CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And it's been...
Was that kind of at the start of the CrossFit phase, or had it been around for a while? I think you were the first time I had ever really heard of CrossFit.
It had been around a while. It was still kind of like in its infancy at the time. Mm-hmm. Like the CrossFit Games, what you see on TV had been probably like 6 years in or 7 years in. It had just kind of started going mainstream when I started in like 2012.
And for our listeners out there that may not be familiar with CrossFit, can you explain what CrossFit is?
It's constantly varied functional movements performed at a high intensity. And so like it's, you never really do the same workout twice. Mm-hmm. Thing about CrossFit, it combines like Olympic lifting, powerlifting, endurance sports, and gymnastics all kind of into one. And it's, in my opinion, the best training methodology out there because you incorporate everything. You're just not like fixated on one thing. Yeah.
Yep. So obviously your love for the CrossFit led to you opening your own gym, right? Which started in your Holiday Inn building downtown, right? Yeah. So how did that transition into Mad Apple CrossFit?
Yeah. So we had originally were going to have a partner, and it just didn't work out. And I'll tell you, you have a partner for 2 reasons. One, that partner brings a skill set that you do not possess or wish to attain. Mm-hmm. And they're willing to kind of do most of the work. And the second reason is they have more money. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so that's kind of how I look at it. That's why we don't have any partnerships. This is me and my sister, partners and everything. That's it. And it just did not work out. We didn't share the same values and yada, yada, yada. So I started it and I hired this guy, Mike Martin. And I said, Mike, if you ever get to 100 members, which seemed like crazy, we'll move the gym. Well, he got to like 100 members in like 9 months. And so,
oh, crap.
So within like a year or something, we moved to our current space, which is at 3630 Illinois Road. And that's evolved, and we took over the whole building. And originally, that's where Priority Life Care's offices started out of too, and we grew out of that. But now we have CrossFit is like, the main thing, but we have Mad Apple Sports Performance, which is, I think, going on year 3, which is really grown. So we train middle school, high school, college, and professional athletes out of there. We have 2 locations now because we have the baseball softball academy. We have a travel softball organization with 15 or 16 teams. We'll have travel baseball this year. We have our first 3 teams, I think, that have agreed to kind of start that. And then, that's been really cool because I've been able to be more involved in the community. Sports, as I mentioned, is my big passion. And so my wife and I have a foundation, the Bobby and Brandy Petras Foundation, and we focus mostly on underprivileged youth in sports. And so we're able to reach a lot of that either through the gym or through the sports performance side.
Gotcha. So you beat me to the Mad Apple Sports transition there. Great transition to it. But where do you envision that going?
I'm in a very good space where it doesn't pay my bills, right? It's like I don't have to feed my family off of sports. And so I want to help as many kids as possible. Like my bigger dream, I guess, would be, especially if we're looking on like the baseball softball side, is that kids don't feel like they have to go to Indianapolis to get really good training. I think parents really miss the boat on travel sports when they're fixated on their kid being on a team that wins. Because I say, look, you pay all this money for your daughter or your son to develop into the best player that they can be. And that doesn't always mean you're better to be the worst player on the best team versus the best player on a worse team, kind of, as long as you're developing. Either one of those scenarios work. And I hate that the parents get fixated on like, well, they've got to play for this team in Indianapolis because they're nationally recognized and they're going to win a bunch of stuff. In all reality, your kid needs to develop because they're not going to play on that team when they go to college.
No.
So
chance likely they probably won't play those same positions or anything else. That's my problem with my experience within travel sports, most specifically travel baseball is where I've got my experience, but is that they're usually fixated on a few kids.
Yeah.
Those kids play the same positions every innings, the shortstops, the pitchers, things like that. And there really is no overall development for the rest of the kids on the team. So when you're a parent, you're picking a team like, oh, this team's a winning team. They're out there. That's the team you're looking for when your kid's playing and losing. Oh, there's a good one. Now they want you to the team. But what happens when your kid goes on that team and he's not getting that development? He's not getting that time.
I think it's tough. I tell parents like this all the time when they leave, like if they're thinking of leaving our program or they leave the program, I say, look, you got to do what you think is best for your kid and where they're going to develop the most. And if that's not our organization, that's fine. But like really be fixated on, is your kid getting better? Not is your kid winning? And I think ego sometimes it's tough. Like you want your kid to be on the team that wins all the time.
Yeah. I love that. I don't know if it's an exact saying or not, but I hear a lot of time by well-experienced college coach, things like that is like develop in your youth. No one's going to ask you when you go to college if you won that 12U tournament last week.
No one cares.
Yeah, no one cares what you won back there. They care about if you get developed and how you're performing now, right? So obviously talked a little bit about your business stuff. With everything you have going on, how do you manage your business and personal life to make sure you're there for your family and your kids?
I'll tell you, spring is the toughest because I'm the head soccer coach for the Woodside girls middle school team, and we have practice every day or a game. And my kids, and we were talking about this earlier, my kids played every single sport. We also had 2 college kids move in with us, 2 kids I was playing at St. Francis with in basketball. One of them just moved out. He got a full ride to go to Florida Gulf Coast. Super excited. Isaiah Malone, pro level talent. And then Damari Hood, who will be transferring to another school this year, also very, very talented, future's bright. They've helped out a lot because they can drive, and so they've been moving the kids around. I get up really early, normally like 5 a.m. Got a nice little like sauna cold plunge routine that I do to kind of get in the right mindset.
That's morning coffee, or you got coffee too?
And coffee, for sure.
I guess I didn't thought about that. A cold plunge would probably do it too.
At the same time. And then really like one of the things when I'm mentoring kids and the 2, college kids I've been working with the most, like I told them when I was in college, I broke my day down into every 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes when I was in college, I knew exactly what I was doing, whether I was working out, going to class, studying, resting, eating. And I really still kind of approach it from that perspective where I'm blocking my time out. Digital calendars has made that a lot easier. So I know, like when I told you, I'm like, if you invite me to something, you have to send me a calendar invite, or like it doesn't exist for me. But I would say the real answer is like, I don't. I mean, I think every day, like I fail at something, or we forget to pick a kid up, or, my wife and I.
Hopefully somebody's there to pick them up.
Listen, last weekend, somebody on Saturday asked me what I was doing next Saturday. I'm like, next Saturday, dude? Like, I'm a day at a time, man. Like Monday, I know I've got 4 sports. So I don't know. One of my old mentors told me this, and I've really stuck to it, is that your work-life balance is like a scale, and your goal should always for it to be even. And sometimes your work is going to take away and your scale is going to look like this. And then you got to spend more time with your family to bring it back like this. But if this is your family side, it's fine to be like this. Like your family should always come first. I can promise you, when I'm on my deathbed, my kids aren't going to say, oh my gosh, Dad, I'm so glad you were gone so many days and you work so hard and you're leaving us all this stuff. Like, no, like they're only going to remember the times we spent together.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I find most impressive about you, is that a lot of times when you hear about successful individuals in business, it comes at the sacrifice of time with the family, right? And you've been able to, seems like, manage that very, very well to make sure you're there with them.
I try, man. Like I've done some crazy things. Like I've flown to Colorado, seen 3 buildings, and flown back in the same day, like on Delta. And I just know that's more important, the time I spend with my kids. My dad worked in a mill like his whole life and worked doubles and triple shifts and all this stuff. And there was never once when I asked my dad to throw football or baseball, never once did he say, no, I'm too tired. And so like, I think that too, like if my kids ask me to do something, like I'm always going to make time for it. Owning your own business should come with that flexibility. Now there are definitely times where like I have to go somewhere and it stinks, but I tend to push more towards my family than my work.
Yeah. You were mentioning the 2 young men that were living with you, right? One of the other things I've always admired about you is your ability to connect with people and bring them in and make them feel like family, right? Yeah. How do you do that?
I don't know. My parents were always like that. My house, while we didn't have everything, it seemed to always be where everybody was at. And crazy enough, my wife's, my in-laws are amazing, and they're the same way. Like my father-in-law is like incredible. If you ever get a chance to meet him, he actually won the Price is Right.
I think I saw you mention that. Yeah.
Won 2 cars and like the showcase and all stuff. But he's just got this like huge personality. And I don't know. Like I think growing up with not a lot, now that we have, we're fortunate in our lives, like we really like to share it. Like I've always said, like, what's being successful if you can't share it? What's having a bunch of cool stuff if you can't share it? I think people think sometimes I'm joking when I say, if you want to borrow one of my cars, like take it out on a date. And I'm serious. Like why wouldn't you? And I honestly think like I wanted to play college basketball. Like that was one of the things that I didn't get to do in college. I played football and track. And, I got this crazy idea around this time last year or a little earlier that I was going to play college basketball.
You're going to beat me to the next question. So transition into it.
Okay, perfect. So I, got a hold of Coach Lacrosse at St. Francis, and we're like basically the same age. And he was like, oh my gosh, we'd love to have you. Now, very selfishly, I set out with all I want to do is get in a game, score 2 points. That's my story. Let's do it, So I trained. Like I hired a trainer, Brandon Evans at Pro Standard Basketball. He'd meet me at Woodside at like 5 a.m. every morning, and we'd train. Then I'd go back to my house, get my kids ready for school, take them to school. And then I would kind of train throughout the day. And then got on with St. Francis, went through all the summer stuff, all the camp, everything. Developed a close relationship with 2 of the players, Damari and Isaiah. And I'm like, all right, when are we training next week? And they're like, well, we have to go home. The dorms aren't available in the summer. There's no housing for the players. And I'm like, I called the coach. I'm like, this can't be true. Like, who am I going to train with? And I was like, what about the dorms? He's like, well, we'd have to pay to put them in the dorms. And I'm like, I'll pay to put them in the dorms. So I paid to put, 3 or 4 guys in the dorms. But then like 3 or 4 weeks later, they have to move out because they have to get the dorms ready for school. So I go to my wife, Brandy, and I'm like, this like stinks. And she's like, just have them move in with us. And I'm like, seriously? Like, yeah. So I called Damari and Isaiah, and they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. So they moved in with us for like the rest of the summer. We trained every morning in a day together. And then When we got to the start of school, now I'm enrolled in classes, right? I already have a master's degree. I'm enrolled in master's classes, and I'm taking, I have to actually take the classes, and thankfully all online. And then we get to we're like practicing. I do the conditioning part. It's like 2 months of conditioning, which is hard. I'm 44, and luckily I'm in shape, but my body's like breaking down. And then the NAIA denies me my eligibility, and I am like crushed.
Now, did you think you still had eligibility because of how you left Tiffin? Yeah. You mentioned earlier you left Tiffin early, correct?
So I didn't leave it early. So the way that eligibility works is, so the NCAA, you have 10 semesters being a full-time student. From the time you enroll in an NCAA to the time you graduate, you have those 10 semesters to use as you choose, okay? In the NAIA, you can use those 10 semesters at any point. So I could have enrolled in St. Francis in 1999, played 2 years of football there, done nothing else, and then re-enrolled last year and had however many years I had eligibility. The NCAA, I couldn't go if I wanted to. The NAIA, when we looked at my transcripts, they're like, you have 1 semester. You need 2 semesters to play basketball because it covers 2. But they're like, play the first half because there's a JV schedule. So I'd play in the JV games, maybe play in a varsity game or 2. Well, anyway, I'd used up my eligibility getting my master's degree because I was a full-time student, which we didn't know. Anyway, so I'm devastated. And then it kind of hit me that my purpose for doing it was to connect with these kids. And, my wife and I become very involved in St. Francis and in the school and helping out the athletic programs. But I made a connection with all of the kids on the team, really, but these 2 specifically, they're family. I mean, those 2 are just like my 5th and 6th kids, I want what's best for them, just like I want for my kids. And they've become big brothers to my kids. And I can't say I am grateful that I got to meet them and they're in our lives because they'll be in them forever.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I got some fun questions I want to get to ask you here real quick. Before I do that, I want you to kind of comment on that picture that we see up there with the superheroes. I know you got a fascination with superheroes, but that's for a good cause. Tell me about that. That's something you do annually, right?
Yeah, every year we dress up as superheroes. Now, I'm a big nerd, and I have a ton of movie quality superhero costumes. And so a group from Mad Apple every year, we go to Parkview right around Christmas, and we pass out gifts to the kids that are in there. And it's tough. It's it's probably my favorite thing to do, but it's the hardest thing to do to see kids that are really sick. But our gym has gotten so behind it. I mean, I think we have 2 or 3 big little trailers of toys that we bring up, and everybody gets them. And
you say this is Christmas time that you do this?
Yeah, it's right around Christmas time. And so we started it. Gosh, I think we're probably on year 6 or 7. Me and my buddy Matt Rogers, we had a friend that worked at Parkview, and they were just like, "Hey, would you mind dressing up as superheroes and just talking to the kids?" We didn't even
Now, did you know that you already had these costumes, or is this?
Yeah. Okay. That's why they reached out, and then it just has evolved into this thing. When it was COVID, I did videos, and so during 2020, I started doing for free, and I would still do this for anybody. I do birthday videos. I dress up as, cause I have you name a superhero costume, I have it, right? So
you got a Batmobile, don't you?
I used to have a Batmobile. I don't anymore, but I would just. Yeah, I would do these videos. I showed up to a couple of kids who birthday parties as Batman and some other superheroes, and so it's a lot of fun, and I still really enjoy it.
One of the other pictures I think they might have cut out here. I don't remember if I put it in there or not, but the family Deadpool picture.
Yeah,
epic. That's awesome.
Every year, my wife is really into Halloween, and every year we do a family themed thing, and the new Deadpool movie had all these Deadpools in. I'm like, this is perfect.
Loved it.
So
yeah. Now, does your kids watch Deadpool?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't feel so bad that my 8-year-old watches it.
No. Yeah.
He begged me to watch Deadpool and Wolverine too, and I'm like, it's not like he hasn't heard these words before.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah, just don't use them.
Yeah.
So don't use them, but he loves Deadpool.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get out of here, I got some fun questions I want to ask you. Obviously, you're a well-traveled man. What's the coolest place you've been to?
Oh man, probably the Maldives. We went there for my wife's 40th birthday, and we had one of those over the water villas and sharks everywhere. Is incredible. And one of the upsides of traveling a lot for work is you get a lot of points. So you use a lot of home points for that
Yeah. Iceland. I know you went there a couple years ago. I did some research on that
Yeah.
afterwards, and volcanoes and everything. What was that experience like?
It was cool. The coolest thing about Iceland is it's not very windy. So like it can be like 40 degrees and kind of nice, or 50. Like I actually played golf twice while I was there. It was a little chilly, but it's a beautiful country. And people there are like very healthy. Like they're very health conscious. I think the population of Iceland's like 300,000. So like, it's like the size of Fort Wayne, but like they have like 80 golf courses and people walk, and it's really cool. It's a place that if you can go, I would recommend to go. You only need like 4 days. You can see the whole island.
That's why I didn't know anything about Iceland until I saw, I think, some pictures that you did. And I know a couple other people have been there since then. And like, just the word Iceland is like, no, I'm not going there. But then looking into it, and it's like, man, this looks cool. And it's not that far away. And it was fairly inexpensive.
Direct flight out of
Yeah.
Detroit. I mean,
I was very surprised about that. Still can't convince Sarah to go, but.
One of the coolest things we did in Iceland is that we went with a couple that we're good friends with, and they're awesome because they're big planers and we're not. But one of the things is there was a natural hot spring.
The Blue Lagoon?
And no,
Or
like
is it different?
that's at like the hotel. This was just like you're driving and some guy owns all this land and has like a natural hot spring that you can just like sit in. And there's other people there too, but it was like I bet the water was like, I don't know, 100 degrees coming out of the ground. It was really cool.
Yeah. Obviously, we mentioned Centennial. We know a lot of the same people from there. Who was the best salesperson you worked with at Centennial? Put you on the spot there. Calls nobody else.
Mari Cooch for sure.
Mari?
Yeah. And I mean, he's so good. I hired him. He works for us.
That's what I was going to ask you too. Was that kind of biased because he works for you now? Or?
I mean, he just really is like, and I worked with him a lot too, though. So like, I kind of firsthand saw what he did, and it's really cool to see him transition into our space. And he works like side by side with my wife because my wife runs sales for us. But yeah, at Centennial, I'd put Mari up against anybody.
Yeah. Fort Wayne Freedom, put you on the spot here again, because I know you probably still stay in contact with a lot of those people. Best player you played with on the Freedom, other than yourself.
Yeah. So best hands of a receiver I've ever seen at any level is a guy named Jeremy Dutcher. There was a defensive end that I played with. His name is Rockman Crable, and he played for the Bills. So he was just a freak athlete. I mean, why he wasn't in the NFL, I honestly will never know. And he ended up playing for a long time. So, I mean, definitely toss up between those two for different reasons.
Who was the quarterback there when you played?
So Brian White was mostly the quarterback. Antoine Taylor and Julian Reese.
Julian Reese was there.
Julian Reese.
I went to school with his younger brother, so I always think Adrian. I couldn't remember Julian's
I
first
played
name,
with
but-
Adrian. Adrian was also really good, but Julian was the quarterback that was running the ball when I broke my leg.
Oh, so it's
Kind of his fault. No.
We'll leave that. Yeah, I used to love going to Freedom games. They were awesome to watch. But Dutcher, before I knew really anybody that played on the team or knew you, Dutcher was the name that stood out.
I mean, it's
amazing
crazy.
hands.
It's
He was
crazy
awesome.
because in college I played with a guy named Nate Washington who played for
Pro,
the Steelers, won 2 Super Bowl rings. Nate was the best athlete I've ever played with, hands down. I mean, just freak athlete. But Jeremy Dutcher's hands, I mean, just incredible.
Obviously, you played a lot of sports in your life. What's your favorite sport to play? What's your favorite sport to watch?
Probably both are basketball, because basketball is one of the few sports you can get better by yourself. Like there's very few sports. And I love to watch NBA basketball. Like I don't
NBA over college?
Oh, not even close. I mean,
Really?
if you are fortunate enough and you go sit courtside at an NBA game, you will forever be just locked in, because these guys are so physical. They're so big. And anybody that thinks that those guys aren't playing hard has not been close. And I think Kevin Durant said it last year. They're like, nobody plays defense in the NBA. And he said, let me tell you the difference between today's game and when you were a kid. It's like if Shaquille O'Neal stood at the 3-point line, nobody would have guarded him. They would have just sagged into the paint because they know he can't shoot. Same thing with like Akeem Olajuwon or Patrick Ewing. Now, every single, all 5 guys can make a 3-pointer at any given time at a high percentage. And so it spreads the court out. So it looks like they're not playing defense, but in all reality, they're playing defense further out. Before we used to clog the paint. So,
Yeah, I haven't sat front row, but I've sat 2 or 3 rows back before, and that's another argument for off there between college and pro. I have an issue with pro. College, I love to watch though.
I mean, I get to play college a lot this year, and so like I like to watch it from that perspective. But I don't know, man. I got to go to a camp with a bunch of pro basketball players last year too, and these guys don't miss. These guys don't miss in practice. It's like insane how good these guys are. And so I think my level of appreciation is a lot higher.
Gotcha. So obviously you've done a lot of things as well, a lot of cool experiences. You played basketball in the Orlando Magic court recently, right? Yeah. You've hit home runs at what baseball stadium was that?
Minnesota Twins, yeah.
You know Tim Tebow, talk with Jalen Rose. What's the coolest experience you've had?
Man, honestly, the Orlando Magic thing was pretty cool. We got to, like, Nick Anderson, who played with Shaq, like, he warmed us up, and I got to take Damari and Isaiah there too. So you walk in and you go into the locker room, and they have your own custom game jersey with your name on it. And I got to pick my number. My favorite number is 19, and I got, those guys, and me and Isaiah are on the same team. And we played, and I played really well. Like, I think I made like 4 or 5 threes in a row at one point. Nick Anderson's like high-fiving me. That was incredible. The Twins experience was also incredible. From that perspective, like, being a former athlete, like, I also got to play at Michael Jordan's private golf course last year, Grove 23. That was really cool. And I'm very, very fortunate to be blessed with these cool experiences.
Yeah. What do I got to do to get you to pull up my house in your Deadpool costume to surprise my son?
Oh, just tell me the date as long as I'm in town.
Freak.
Oh, I'll do it 100%.
He would freak. My 8-year-old. He would freak if he opened the door. I got a ring doorbell too, so I can tell when she like, go open the door and do that.
I'm in.
Awesome. I would love that.
One of my red cars too.
Yeah. So. His actual birthday's in July. I might try to arrange something with you.
I would 100% do it.
He would freak out.
My acting skills aren't very good though.
I don't need you to act. The costume will be it. He'll be like,
okay, perfect.
Because I don't even think he knows about that. I don't think I've ever showed him any pictures or something. I can't remember if I have or not, though. But all right, and we got to get out of here for the day and get you back to your busy schedule. But final question, all of Fort Wayne has been dying to know. I know you don't drink beer, but when you do, what is Robert Petras Jr.'s favorite beer?
Oh, my favorite beer? Oh, man.
This goes along with the most interesting man.
Yeah, I mean,
don't say Dos Equis.
It's not Dos Equis. Man, I guess if I was going to drink a beer, I'd probably have like a Dogfish Head 90 Minute or something like that.
Okay.
I'm a bourbon guy, so like, and I have a really nice bourbon collection, but my favorite thing to drink is Woodford Reserve.
Is it bigger than Alex's?
Oh yeah. Well, he quit drinking, so like,
Well, he just collects it though. Didn't have to drink it to collect it.
I don't know.
I just wanted to get that rivalry going so I can say that that to him.
I would put mine up against his, but I will tell you the last thing I would like to say is I didn't get to mention, like, I run all my businesses and really our family too, like, under 3 principles, and that's to talk. Like, love to over communicate. If we're talking about our family, like, we want to talk through like any issues we have. When we're talking about my businesses, in the assisted living side, we want to talk to the residents and the families. We want to talk to our coworkers. The second part is to listen. In the assisted living world, especially with some of the elderly people, they just need someone to listen to them. Same thing on the employee side, family side. Like, sometimes, as a parent, you want to tell your kid something, but it's just most important to listen. And I tell parents of athletes this all the time, like, the first thing when you get done watching your kid play, instead of telling them what they think you should do, you should say, I love you. I love watching you play. How do you think you did? The third thing, which is the most important thing, is don't be an asshole. We fully believe that we can be good, kind-hearted people and be successful in business. I don't know where we lost that as a species, that we think we have to be like mean to get our way. But like, I promise you, in my work, if you do number 1 and number 2, but you are number 3, you just won't last very long with us. And then the same thing with our kids. Like, we're constantly telling them to be kind. Like, there's no way or situation where my kid should be mean to somebody else, even if they were mean to them. 2 wrongs don't make a right. And so, those are the 3 things I really, really try to guide my business and my family with in my personal life.
Gotcha. Those are some great pieces of advice there. One of the things you want to touch on that you mentioned there that I had to personally learn, especially around the kids and the sports, was, as soon as the game's over, talking to them about what you did right, what you did wrong. Yeah. It doesn't matter which one it is. Somebody gave me that piece of advice, like, look, on that car ride home, don't even talk about the sport. Yeah. Don't talk about just go back to your normal average life. Talk to them a day or two. Because I had my mindset, like, if I don't talk to them about it now, they're going to forget about it. They're not going to think about it. And I really saw a huge difference when it's over with, right? They got enough pressure and stress on them. Don't start talking about what they did wrong or what they could have done better during that car ride home after the game.
I think what I realize is sometimes it's just not that it's more important to you than it is to them. It's like, there's been times where I thought my daughter didn't play very well. And I say, how do you think you did? And she thinks she had the best game. So I'm like, why would I ruin that for her? So.
Yep. So awesome. Well, hey, appreciate you coming on the show, taking your time to be with us today. Like I said, just knowing you, knowing your story, I really do feel like you live a fascinating life, right? You got a lot of advice, things that are helpful for our listeners out there. So Bobby Petras, thank you for joining us here. Till next time, I'm Ryan Leopard. This is Fort Wayne Up Close, our neutral voices. Peace.